In preparation for Predator Badlands, let's have a look at why the previous two installments, Prey and Killer of Killers, worked so well.
Why do you want to hunt?
Because you all think that I can't.
Now, director Dan Trachtenberg first showed up on my radar when he directed the brilliantly contained and tense film called 10 Cloverfield Lane, which is the awesome follow-up of the monster found footage classic that is Cloverfield. Besides directing the greats that are John Goodman and Mary Elizabeth Winstead in that film, it also perfectly captures that slow descent into paranoia between the characters and almost makes the audience feel paranoia. It's brilliant stuff. You should go and watch that film too. Now, the Predator franchise has always been close to my heart. Now, I'll tell you a short story about my childhood. The very first Predator film I've seen, this the first one with Arnold, it probably traumatized my childhood just because I remember it so vividly. It was about when I was 7. I was living in a small town in Romania, in communist Romania, and I snuck into this makeshift cinema that was basically the local bar that had a TV on the wall with a VHS player connected to it. Now, my dad's friends let me in to see the film. They didn't know what it was, and bear in mind this was a time when age certifications weren't even existing there, and even probably having a VHS was barely legal in communist Romania in 1988. Now, once I saw Predator, I was so scared of going into gardens and orchards after that for a few days afterwards I had to take the long way around to go to school instead of crossing the orchard that I usually did. I was convinced there's a predator waiting for me in the tree to blow my head off. I was terrified. So that truly stayed with me for a long time. Now, the franchise itself, after the first two Predator films, I think it lost its way a little bit. I might know why, but I'll come back to that later. But I think some of it was the fact that back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, they didn't have much CGI, which meant that forced the filmmakers to be more inventive in how they revealed the Predator and how they directed the action. Because the creature essentially was played by a real person in a costume, they had to show less of him and then build anticipation through sound and lightning and those sounds that the Predator makes, like the thermal vision and the creaks and his usual noises that just makes him really scary. And that worked really well in the first two films because it was more of the power of less is more in a film than just showing everything rushed in the beginning like the later films did. Then came Prey, the first film directed by Dan Trachtenberg. Now, when I saw the trailer, by then I had already lost hope in the franchise. I was just like breezing through what else is being made with the Predator franchise. But the thing that put me off the franchise was the crossover between Predator and Alien. That just killed it for me. But the trailer for Prey intrigued me because when this was dropped, the first thing that intrigued me was the fact that it was back to nature, so it was happening like in the original in nature. And the second thing was the feel of the Predator felt a bit different. It was a bit slimmer, faster, and obviously it was felt deadlier just because of the help of CGI these days and all of that, better special effects. So I went to the cinema, and like many others, boy was I impressed. It had all the ingredients of the first Predator. It took its time to build the anticipation and the tension and introducing the characters and making us care for them. Something that many films these days just forget about. But here's what I think, what Dan Trachtenberg understands what truly this series is about. The theme here, and the first two films put this so well. At its core, Predator films are really a story of David versus Goliath. Now, I'm not religious, but that's a theme, a storytelling theme that you find it everywhere and is very popular, but sometimes it's very well disguised, like this film, that you don't really see it. But essentially, David is the human in Predator and Goliath is the predator. It's simple and very powerful. And the bigger the gap, the power gap between these two, and the more we care about the David character, that makes the action more gripping and hence making the film better. Now remember, David versus Goliath is not a story of good versus evil. Goliath is not out there to kill just for fun. He's essentially a soldier doing his duty. So, for example, in Prey, Goliath is the predator. He's invisible. He's much stronger. He's a seasoned killer. He's got this massively advanced technology. David, which is the character of Naru, David, she's essentially a teenager with an axe, and she's trying to prove herself to the tribe and also protect her tribe when she finds out who she's dealing with. Now, she has the determination and she has the motivation to defeat Goliath, the predator, and that's why they work. Those first two films and then Prey, they nailed that theme very well. Now, the follow-up to Prey was a bit of a surprise. Animated film called Predator, Killer of Killers, and this film actually tells three stories in one, and then there's a fourth sort of epilogue style segment at the end that ties them all together. The first three stories take place in different periods in history. So the first one is in the Viking era, the second one is in the Japan shogunate period, and then the third one is in the Second World War. In each, there's a predator appears to hunt for trophies, and in each, the predator is fought back. And although it's animated, I don't think they went down the animation route because of budget, because actually this animation looks really weird, looks really expensive. The artwork, the backgrounds, the animation, they're really, really excellent. The visuals are, it reminded me a little bit of the Netflix series Arcane, although it's not quite as polished as that one. But the action and actually the storytelling is really good, because again, these stories work because of the same simple concept, David versus Goliath. Every single one of them is the same theme, and Dan Trachtenberg seems to know that. Finally, we have Predator Badlands. Now, trailer looks interesting, has the same visual tone as Prey, and I'm hoping, though, it keeps the same simple concept alive, that one of David versus Goliath. And at the moment, with the trailer, it suggests a little bit of a buddy comedy dynamic in a dangerous planet, but what we are expecting and what I'm expecting from this film is having a strong villain, having a really powerful Goliath, considering this time David is a young predator, is a younger predator. He's still a predator, so the villain, whoever that might be, needs to be 10 times stronger for the film to actually work, to raise the stakes to that level like the other ones. The only thing that worries me a little bit is this hint of another crossover with Alien. I don't know, maybe Dan Trachtenberg and the writers can find a clever way to make it work, but in my head, these two creatures belong to two different films. They're essentially two different genres. The Alien films, they're horror. The xenomorphs are survival of the fittest. That is the theme. They're driven by instinct and they just want to survive and to multiply, and they need a host to do so. There's no evil villain or anything like that. That's a whole type of film. The Predator films, they're action thrillers. These predators are intelligent hunters. They're collecting trophies across the galaxy, and mixing these two breaks the David and Goliath formula. It just makes a totally different film, which doesn't necessarily mean it's better. But I don't know, who knows? Maybe Trachtenberg and the writers will come up with some brilliant way to merge these two. I don't know. Either way, I'm happy to see the Predator films returning to their formal glory while it still lasts. But what do you think? Do you think this crossover idea is a good idea? Do you think the franchise is in good hands and will continue to? Just let me know in the comments, and we'll see you next time.